Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a truly fascinating subject, hidden within the ancient texts, the prophetic signs of the end times. As we're going to see, our source material reveals this incredibly specific, profound pattern that echoes across several books of scripture, actually using the natural world to map out massive cosmic events. So let's break this pattern down together. We'll be looking closely at the imagery of the fig tree and uncovering what the books of Lucas, Hazan, and Yeshaya tell us about the coming reign of Elohim. All right, let's just anchor ourselves right out of the gate with these foundational words from Yahushua in Lucas chapter 21, verse 29. He says, "Look at the fig tree and all the trees." Now, this isn't just a casual observation, right? It's a direct invitation to observe a deep spiritual reality that's literally mirrored right in front of us in nature. And notice how he doesn't just isolate the fig tree. He says all the trees. It's a call for us to really open our eyes and pay attention to the world around us. So that brings us to part one, the sign of the season. Now, here's the crucial thing to grasp. Yahushua absolutely wasn't just giving his listeners a quick agriculture lesson. No, he was teaching us how to discern the nearness of a massive divine shift. It's all about recognizing the season. You know, in the ancient Levant, the fig tree was actually one of the very few trees that totally lost its leaves in the winter. So its late spring budding, that was a stark, undeniable, you can't miss it indicator that summer was coming. Just like anyone could look at that budding tree and know, okay, summer is basically here, the texts are telling us that when these prophetic signs start popping up, the reign of Elohim is near. It all begins with this peaceful, hopeful anticipation. But wow, does this imagery flip dramatically when we look forward to the book of Hazan, also known as Revelation. Suddenly, we're dragged from the peaceful anticipation of a budding spring tree straight into the terrifying cosmic disruption of a violently shaken tree. It's the exact same metaphor, right? But the context totally shifts from the quiet arrival of a new season to this sudden, violent separation. Which leads us right into part two, the shaking of the heavens. Let's pause for a second and really feel the weight of this imagery from Hazan chapter 6, verse 13. It reads, "And the stars of the heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its unripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind." I mean, the gentle budding of leaves we just talked about, entirely gone, replaced by a violent wind. It paints this terrifying picture of a sudden, unnatural interruption, just shaking the unripe fruit loose long before it even has a chance to mature. And this perfectly captures the core message of the source text. These physical signs on earth, the wind, those falling figs, they're really just reflections of an immense, unimaginable spiritual upheaval ordained by Yahweh. The falling of those unripe figs, that represents a massive transition. The heavens themselves are disturbed, and the fig tree becomes this dual sign of both divine revelation and the ultimate final separation of what can and cannot remain. So when we actually map out these ancient sources, a super clear four-step prophetic pattern emerges. It's like a roadmap. First, we have the budding. That's our initial sign. Second is the shaking, which we just looked at as this great transition. Third is the sword, representing vengeance and judgment. And finally, the gathering, which is ultimate restoration. It's literally a step-by-step guide through these ancient prophecies. Having laid out that pattern, we've got to face part 3, judgment upon the nations. All right, let's jump over to the book of Yeshaya, or Isaiah, chapter 34, verse 2. The prophet Yeshaya shows us that this shaking, it's not just a localized event. The text says the displeasure of Yahweh is against all the nations, and his wrath is against all their divisions. So we're not talking about one specific country here. The source material is describing a universal, sweeping judgment that's poured out across the entire earth. And look at this, the tree motif comes right back, but now it's expanded to a massive cosmic scale. The source text tells us that the heavens themselves will literally rot away and be rolled up like a scroll. It specifically compares this to a host fading like a leaf fading on a vine, or, you guessed it, the fading leaf of a fig tree. The language Yeshaya uses is almost identical to the imagery we saw in Hazan. It really just highlights the absolute fragility of all creation when standing before the Creator. Moving right into verse 5, Yeshaya delivers this intensely striking image. "For my sword shall be drenched in the heavens. Look, it comes down on Edom and on the people of my curse for judgment." I mean, wow. The sword of Yahuwah descends, piercing straight through those rotting, rolled-up heavens to strike the earth directly. Now, to really grasp this within the context of our larger pattern, it's absolutely vital to know that Edom here, it isn't just a pinpoint on a historical map. The source material makes it clear that Edom stands as a prophetic symbol. It's a picture representing all rebellious nations. It symbolizes all of humanity's prideful divisions, all our human structures just being totally brought low and facing inescapable judgment. And that total dismantling brings us to part 4, the fall of human kingdoms. Check out verse 8 from Yeshaya 34. For it is the day of the vengeance of Yahweh, the year of recompense for the cause of Tsiyon. These are heavy words, but they remind us that justice is absolutely central to this prophetic timeline. This isn't just some random act of destruction. The text clearly describes it as a profound, divinely appointed day of recompense. The sources actually outline what we can call a great reversal. Literally, the total collapse of everything humanity normally relies on for strength and stability. I mean, look at this. Rulers completely vanish. Military and political strongholds become totally desolate. Ultimately, the proud structures of man are wiped out, and the land is given over entirely to wild creatures. It's the complete and total overturning of the human order as we know it. But, and this is key, the texts don't just end with doom and destruction. Notice the quote here from verse 16. Search from the book of Yahuwah and read, not one of these shall be missing, and his spirit shall gather them. So right amidst all this absolute desolation, the text tells us that the spirit of Yahuwah perfectly orchestrates his will. He replaces human pride with his own appointed order, which brings us to the final step of our pattern, the gathering. Which leads us to our 5th and final part, the rain is drawing near. When you put it all together, the fading leaves, the falling unripe figs, the violently rolled up heavens, all these elements converge to teach us one massive lesson, and that is human power, no matter how tough or formidable it seems to us right now, is fading and entirely temporary. The fall of the figs and the judgment of the nations all point to the undeniable reality that the kingdoms of men are just making way for the eternal reign of Yahweh. So we've come full circle back to where we started. So you also, when you see these matters take place, know that the reign of Elohim is near. Yahushua's words from Lucas echo back to us now, right? But with a much, much heavier, far more profound weight than just some simple seasonal parable. Once you truly grasp the pattern, the shaking, the sword, and the gathering, well, seeing these matters take place suddenly takes on a monumental, world-shifting significance. To wrap up the explainer today, I really want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Based on this prophetic pattern we've explored, are we actually discerning the season we are in? And honestly, what will remain of our lives when the heavens are rolled up like a scroll? Keep that question close the next time you see a fig tree begin to bud. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.